Cowardly wuss, Chaffetz gets brutal smackdown for Trump attack. It's easy to call names and accuse people of things as you run away. Americans are blasting outgoing Representative Jason Chaffetz for brutally trashing President Trump and his administration just 2 weeks before the lawmaker leaves Congress. Chaffetz, who relinquished the House Oversight Committee gavel earlier this month, said he believes the Trump administration isn't any better about government transparency than the Obama administration had been. In fact, he said President Trump's administration may even be worse when it comes to obstruction of congressional oversight requests. The reality is, sadly, I don't see much difference between the Trump administration and the Obama administration, Chaffetz told Sharyl Attkisson of Sinclair Broadcasting in an interview that aired Sunday. I thought there would be these floodgates would open up with all the documents we wanted from the Department of State, the Department of Justice, the Pentagon. In many ways, it's almost worse because we're getting nothing, and that's terribly frustrating. The outgoing chairman of the House Oversight Committee also took shots at Attorney General Jeff Sessions, claiming Sessions is worse than his Democrat predecessor. Well, let's just, after he said all of this, which we'll take a listen to the tape, Jason Chaffetz is a profile in courage now that it's safe for the cowardly wuss to speak his mind on his way out. Chaffetz, Trump is just like Obama on White House transparency. America and you repubs are just like Dems in everything else. Hashtag Covfefe and hashtag Make America Great Again. It's easy to call names and accuse people of things as you run away. Once a hashtag Never Trump schlub, always a hashtag Never Trump schlub. Look who grew half a spine now that he's leaving Congress. Jason Chaffetz slams Trump and Sessions. Chaffetz betrays GOP before leaving Congress. Donald Trump is just as bad as Obama and Jeff Sessions is. Let's just take a quick listen to what he was talking about. I wouldn't have to read it.
I am tenacious and passionate about serving this country.
After 8.5 years on an upward trajectory in Washington, D.C., Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah has suddenly and quite unexpectedly pulled himself out of the game.
Committee stands adjourned.
Some people might think this is a great time to be a Republican chairman of an important committee because Republicans control the House, they're the majority in the Senate, and they hold the president's office. Yeah. That means you would think the federal agencies can't stonewall investigations of spending, waste, fraud, and abuse.
The reality is, sadly, I don't see much difference between the Trump administration and the Obama administration. I thought these floodgates would open up with all the documents we wanted from the Department of State, the Department of Justice, the Pentagon. In many ways, it's almost worse because we're getting nothing. And that's terribly frustrating. And with all due respect, the Attorney General has not changed at all. I find him to be worse than what I saw with Loretta Lynch in terms of releasing documents and making things available. That's my experience, and that's not what I expected.
What were some of the investigations that this committee was stalled on that you hoped could be picked up now that's not been able to happen in terms of documents not provided by federal agencies?
But we have everything from the Hillary Clinton email investigation, which is really one of the critical things. There was the investigation into the IRS, and one that was more than 7 years old is Fast and Furious. I mean, we have been in court trying to pry those documents out of the Department of Justice, and still to this day, they will not give us those documents. And at the State Department, nothing. Stone cold silence.
To what do you attribute that?
I think if we went to the senior most people, even the president himself, they would be pulling their hair out and they would hate to hear that. But within the bowels of the organization, they just seem to circle the wagons and think, oh, we could just wait you out, we can just wait you out.
Well, they do.
They do.
Republicans were very upset in the last few years over the IRS Commissioner John Koskinen, who they said allowed destruction of documents and investigations and other things. This committee, I believe, even called for him to be impeached.
Yeah.
He's still IRS Commissioner, even though Republicans are now in charge of pretty much everything. Why is that?
Yeah, look, you had more than 50 Republicans pleading with President Trump to release him, to let him go, fire him, or at least encourage him to retire. No, he's still there. Nobody was fired, nobody was prosecuted, nobody was held accountable. We tried to issue subpoenas, we tried to hold people in contempt, and the Obama administration said no, and the Trump administration came in and did zero. Nothing changed.
Do Republican leaders have an appetite to do the kind of oversight that needs to be done?
No. I mean, the reality is there aren't very many people that want to play offense. There aren't many people who say, look, we have a duty and an obligation to fulfill the oversight responsibility that was put in place at the very founding of our country.
Just the way you describe it, it's troubling. Is Congress broken?
Congress doesn't stand up for itself. I think it's really lost its way. They say, oh, we'll use the power of the purse. That doesn't work. First of all, they never do cut funding. Even getting people to come up and testify before Congress, the Obama administration at the end of their term, they got so brazen they stopped sending people up. They just didn't care. And there was no way to enforce that. And until that changes, the legislative branch is going to get...
Senator John McCain also made headlines last week after telling the left-leaning UK Guardian he believes American leadership was better under President Obama than President Trump. According to The Guardian, McCain was visibly irked when asked about comments Trump made last week in the wake of the terrorist attack in London, in which he criticized London Mayor Sadiq Khan for his response to the atrocity. McCain, who lost his 2008 presidential bid against then-candidate Obama after a campaign in which he repeatedly defended Obama for criticism, has been an outspoken critic of Trump and has refused to tone down his rhetoric since the president took office. In January, McCain admitted that he gave the FBI an unverified and error-riddled dossier detailing claims of a Russian blackmail plot against then-President-elect Donald Trump. Trump has denounced it as a complete and total fabrication. Talk radio host Rush Limbaugh has repeatedly warned that President Trump's biggest opponents are among the GOP ranks. I don't understand how people don't get that it's not just the Democrats in Washington that are roadblocking Trump. I mentioned it earlier, Limbaugh said during a May 30th broadcast. The Republican Party, which is ostensibly the party of the president, and they owe their majority to him, particularly the Senate, are roadblocking Donald Trump more than the Democrats are. Because the Democrats cannot. The Democrats don't have the votes in the House to stop Trump. The Democrats don't have the votes in the Senate to stop Trump. Although there is the 60-vote cloture requirement, it's not the Democrats standing up and saying, we are not going to help. We're going to stand in the way of any foolish tax cut you propose. It's the Republicans standing up and saying, I just don't see how where there's no room here. I don't know how we're going to lower rates when you have this exemption over here and you have this exemption there. And I just read this stuff and I shake my head. They don't want to cut taxes. Either they don't want to cut taxes institutionally, they don't want to cut taxes economically, or they just don't want to do the heavy lifting. I don't know what it is. My guess is they don't want to help Trump. That's not a surprise. While Senate Republicans scramble to pass a health care reform bill and the White House contemplates options to raise the debt ceiling, White House counselor Kellyanne Conway slammed Congress on Monday for focusing on midterm elections and not on solutions. They shouldn't be thinking about next year's midterm election, Conway said during an interview on Fox and Friends. Here's why. If you do your job well, you get reelected. If people feel like you've had a positive impact on their lives and you put together the solutions, you put them forth and you pass them the way the president is doing, then you will get reelected. Misprint. She continued, when he says draining the swamp, it's not just get rid of all the crocodiles in the water that we don't need there. It's also moving at a different pace. So true, so true. But yes, Chaffetz saying that just like the Obama administration, how could you even compare the two? How can you even compare the two? And Loretta Lynch to Jeff Sessions? Loretta Lynch is the most corrupt person. So, in other words, he is a traitor. He is a traitor at the same time. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and thank you so much for watching.